We are here because we are dedicated to helping the entire CrossFit community. Determined to elevate coaches, box owners, athletes, and everything in between, we believe that this mission will begin right here, right now. While this time and this goal begins with you, our hope is that you take this fire ignited within you and weave it into your own life with the same unrelenting passion to give those you have the privilege of coming in contact with the best hour of their day.
All right, y'all. Big week.
Did you say y'all?
Y'all. I'm Southern.
Did you suddenly become Southern?
You know I spent some time in Florida.
So that doesn't count. Florida's its own world.
Florida is its own world, but I believe Virginia is as well.
Is its own world?
Yeah, you guys are pretty
Virginia is weird. Virginia's like Maryland, where they're like, we're in the South because we're below the Mason-Dixon line. I'm like, that is technically correct. However, wildly inaccurate because you're not from the South unless you're basically in the Southeastern Conference. I'll give you the Big 12 essentially if you're like Texas, but yeah, Maryland and Virginia are not the South.
What is that, Mid-Atlantic?
I mean, based on CrossFit standards, Mid-Atlantic, yeah. But the South, listen, from somebody who lives in deep South Louisiana, I'm like, Maryland and Virginia are definitely not the South.
You got a Starbucks card in your hand? You getting coffee?
They're gift cards, everybody. Just stack these in your office and buy your members gift cards and just give them out.
How much?
$15.
$15? Wow. Random?
15 shekels, since money's not real.
Like randomly, You just hand out $15 gift cards, or are you doing that?
No, they're for, I will give gift cards for referrals, for paid in fulls, and then sometimes for other random stuff. But I typically will buy them 5 at a time, and I'll go through probably on average about 5 a month, 5 to 7 a month.
Whenever we tell someone, hey, you should be having a referral fee and giving people, whether it's half off for the month or a Starbucks gift card, they're like, yeah, but what if the same person refers 5 people? I'm like, then give them even more. Like they're like worried that they're getting a free membership. I'm like, do you understand they're giving you 5 members?
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I have to do that for. So this there's 2 things there. Tevin and Mason. There's 2 things. One, there is, I think we talked about this before. Don't split the baby. Right? Don't beat Jay. All right. Don't be cheap. Okay.
I'm frugal. I'm not cheap. There's a difference.
Yeah. Is there?
I don't know.
Which is in that scenario, give it to everybody, right? I've had a scenario where I've given 3 people the referral. Okay. And again, people freak out because what you're looking at is the short-term repercussion of that. The long-term outcome of that is you will get far more referrals. Like that will come back to you tenfold. And the math on it, if you've done all this correctly, is like it's a mild loss if you were to give 3 people the referral. I mean mild.
It's a loss for a month. That's
my point, right? But it's like it might net out to $50 loss, but you will get multiple referrals off of that. So like I was just thinking about that. So like these, I need to give a referral to 2 people for somebody that brought in, but from one of those guys who came in first, I have 6 people that came from that person. I was looking at the numbers the other day. We were looking at last night in the staff meeting. Most of this is intentional, right? Like, and this is crazy. So we always talk about net 3. We will probably grow by 100 people in the year 2021. Maybe more. Yeah.
That's net 8.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, bigger point is it's easy to look at, hey, this is a loss. Your job is to keep those people forever. And if you keep them for a year, it's not even close to being a loss. I mean, it's just a huge gain.
Right. The other, and this is actually a good lead into the topic, which we'll get to in just a second. The other thing is people ask like, hey, how should I frame the referral, right? Is it dollars or percentage? The shorter answer is there's no right answer. What we typically find to be more effective is the bigger number, right? So if it was 50% or $70, I would go with $70, even though 50% might be more.
Right. So just even this, like, let me just brainstorm for a moment. Let me indulge me.
I'm sorry, everybody.
You have how many? Am I going to drink a C4 when I'm in Virginia? Katie, you want to talk on a C4?
We're gonna shotgun. I'm drinking this one because it says it's Super Brain and it's the color of cotton candy. So
You better go get a second one of those if it's Super Brain. You need two of them. We'll drink
For
one of
sure.
those right before Cal Sue, Katie. And so
listen, you're the only one doing that workout. So
what's on the agenda for Thursday and Friday? What are the workouts?
Well,
the
one
gym?
day you guys have to do Annie
Yeah,
and
it's
Flight
true.
Simulator.
Yeah, one day I have to do 7,000 double unders.
I got my rope
It's just
pack.
background.
I did text David Newman, founder of RX owner, and said, "Hey, can I travel with this rope?" And he said, "Some people do get it taken away, so I'm slightly concerned about."
Why?
In general, jump ropes are like it's up to the specific TSA, but this one, so I've got the heavy metal cord on it, and it basically looks like the type of thing you would bring on a plane if you wanted to choke out the pilot. So,
I will tell you this. I have been. This is not a joke. I have been traveling with that RX Smart Gear jump rope for. I have the one in there that we got for the 10-year anniversary, which was how long ago?
the
games.
The affiliate gathering, you mean?
No, the 10-year games anniversary. What was that, like 4 or 5 years ago?
No, 2007.
Yeah, because So since then I've had that jump rope in my backpack. So every single seminar and every time I've traveled to go on a vacation anywhere, that has been in my backpack and never once had it pulled out.
Well, he was like, "Just tell him it's a jump rope and you're competing." I was like, "That's what I would say if I was trying to murder the pilot." So I don't know that that's the best excuse.
Also, nobody's going to believe you're competing in a fitness competition.
That too.
Even though you did tear your little sissy hands at a competition this last
My
weekend.
hands are torn.
Yeah.
My arms are still not extending.
Yeah.
But
Some people believe that you did 40 pull-ups in a row. Some said that you probably did 30 and just gave yourself the extra 10.
there wasn't. Also, are we going to get finally one of the Yeti wine mugs that I've been promised for months and not ever gotten?
First of all, who promised you one of those?
Well, I asked for one. You didn't.
You promised yourself one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will give you all a CrossFit Rife 11-year anniversary Yeti wine mug.
And we're gonna get a bottle of wine, Katie. We'll be partying at the Airbnb. So anyway, let me go to this. You have 100 members. 100% of those 100 members refer one person this month. You decide, wow, that's incredible. I'm gonna give all of those 100 members, my original members, a free month. Well, guess what? You've just basically exchanged membership. No loss, no gain. But now, if you do a good job, next month you have 200 members.
Well, that's actually incorrect. You would still have a net gain in that scenario because if you were charging for an onboarding, you would probably, if you had that scenario, you would probably still net. Your months would be almost identical, right? If you price your onboarding correctly, I would get the onboarding for the new person, and I'd be a little bit under. It'd probably be about up 130 to 145% for that month where you gave all these referrals free month. The following month, you'd be up 200%.
Yeah. Point is, don't ever look at referral fees as you're losing money. You're only losing referral fees if you're not doing a good job with retention.
Right. I've been really kind of checking on a lot of people. Like as you build your onboarding process, whatever that looks like for you, you need to loop that in there. That needs to be part of the sales conversation as you go through. And this is actually a good segue because this is kind of what I want to talk about. And you and I were having a conversation yesterday. And I said, stop talking about it. We're going to talk about it tomorrow because this is important. And
we're just trying to get off the phone.
I for sure was trying to get off the phone with you. There's essentially 3 types of boxes. And as we go through this scenario, if you're listening to this, I want you to figure out which one you are. The first one, we'll call it 1 to 5%, probably closer to 1, but let's call it 5. Okay. This 1 to 5%, these people are basically masters of their own fate, right? They know how to grow the business. They have a plan. They're executing correctly. They're growing at the rate that they would like to see. They're in the driver's seat. They're in control. Okay. We could agree that this is the minority.
So do you want me to give what I was calling that, or because we have slightly different takes on this.
Okay. Yeah. So give me what you would call that one.
Well, I didn't even define that in my 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where you're going with the other 2.
Well, let me finish then.
Fine.
Fine. And then you can give yours, right? The other 2, we could just split them down the middle, right? So let's call it, I've got 95%, let's call it 47.5% each, 2 equal buckets. Okay. One of those buckets, pretty much out of the equation, meaning like dumpster fire, on the verge of failure. They just don't know it yet, right? Like definitely not making any money. The facility's not great. They just doing it for the wrong reasons potentially, right? Or just refusal to try to make some sort of improvement. Okay, these are the folks that, similar if you're thinking about clients who come in who like the idea of working out but have no actual real desire to make any change in their life, right? Which is really struggle to watch, and similar in this scenario. The group in the middle, which you have very accurately described as falling victim to the curse of the OK gym, is the one that I'm concerned about. That group of 47.5% are the ones who are doing okay, and they have no idea why. And if we really start to unpack things, they are doing okay because the ecosystem with which they live in has allowed them to survive. But they don't know why they're doing okay. They are victim to dips in the month because they just don't know what they're doing, or just passively exist. They're not doing anything really with any sort of rhyme or reason or strategy with which to grow the business. The 5% that we were talking about, the 1 to 5, those people, if you were to ask them, hey, why are you guys doing so well? They would immediately give you a list of things they're like that they were doing to facilitate what is happening. That group in the middle probably is much larger than 47.5%, if we're going to be very honest. And it is the group that I worry about. It's probably the majority of the affiliate owners, is because you have CrossFit, which is this amazing thing, but you have no idea why it's actually surviving. We could probably pull some things out and say, hey, low cost of entry, you have a part-time job, which doesn't mean you need to make money. And you have just enough people to break even, pay the rent, and have a couple of volunteer coaches. But you're 1 or 2 bad months away from having severe dispute with the landlord because you can't pay rent, or paying out of pocket for some duration of time. That's the group I'm worried about. And I'm worried about them because they don't know they're in that group.
So I think we're on the same page, and I think we started defining these categories for different reasons. What I was really getting at, and similar to you, is that you and I and Katie really wind up talking to 3 different types of boxes. And I think based on what you're saying, I think there's 4 categories now. So the types of boxes that we wind up talking to are either A, I'm opening a box, or / taking over a box. So, and I think if you're doing either of those, kudos to you for being smart enough to realize I need help from the get-go. The most successful boxes, it's like anything. If you start doing something new, a new hobby, a new task, anything that you want to succeed in, find a coach, find a mentor, even if someone just a little better than you. But starting your own business and not thinking I need a coach is just naive. So you've got the brand new boxes. Secondly, we have the boxes that are like, I'm failing. And, for a reference to that, go back and listen to our episode with Jen from Bombshell. When I was on our first call with her, I said to her, close your box and start coaching elsewhere or hire a coach. It doesn't have to be us, but if nothing changes, nothing changes. So you have the new boxes, you have the failing boxes. I agree with you on the far end. There's the very small percentage, CrossFit Rife being one of them, netting 100 new members in 2021. That's like, you're crushing it. Now, I would even say, though, those boxes need coaches too, right? You get to the,
1,000%.
Look at the UFC champions. You think they're trained, like all of a sudden they got there and they're like, hey, coach, I no longer need you. Of course, they bring on more coaches.
Right.
So, but then in that middle there is what I call the good to great boxes. And I think that's what you're describing. So when I say good to great boxes, and I think it's a curse, to be honest. I think it's
you've referred to it as a curse, which is the curse of the OK box.
Yeah. And we have people that start off with us in that position, or often the ones that get on a call with us and they're like, you know what? I'm okay. And it's right. You are okay. You're making 36,000 a year, working 18-hour days. You have no help. You cannot take a vacation. You're getting burned out. You're yelling at your members, but you're paying your bills. and I'm not even talking you have a part-time job on the side, many do, and they misconstrue I'm successful. It's like, no. Your job is paying you. This box is actually breaking even. But
Right.
the good to great box, meaning if you just did a couple of these things, if you listen to us, you're going to be great. But because they're like comfortable, because they think they're successful, they also don't think they need coaches.
Well, and this is why it's such a slippery slope, because they're like, I'm good. To which my contention is like, you're good now because nothing's going on. Like, because there is no hardship right now. Right. There's nothing kind of getting in your way. Again, this goes back to like, you're good because the ecosystem has allowed you to be good. Right. But you're not actually in control in those scenarios. And again, I've been this guy. We're just like, hey, we're doing okay. But that was because the ecosystem just allowed me to be that way. There was enough people in the area. There was enough knowledge and awareness of CrossFit because there's X amount of people in Hampton Roads and there's a lot of military folks around here. So they were looking for it. Right. And CrossFit at the time I was doing that was going through a growth phase. Right. All the while I'm ignorant to all of these external factors that just allow me to exist. But I didn't do anything to facilitate any of that. Now, if you fast forward a couple years and you start making some changes and I make some changes, then I facilitated that growth. And then you go through the same iteration where like I get here and I'm like, okay, well, this, I kind of stop doing what I need to do. And then I just exist in this state because the ecosystem has allowed me to exist and I've gotten a little bit of growth here. And then you hit another plateau and then you have to change things again, which is what we did at this point, basically 2 years ago, at which point it's not by accident anymore. It's not just random that people are walking a door. I'm doing that. It's intentional. We had a plan. We executed it. We mapped it out. And essentially we hit the plan in 6 months. The plan was a year, but now we're going to reevaluate because I've learned my lesson the hard way, which is I'm not just going to sit around and wait for things to happen to me anymore. I'm not going to be that person who just allows the ecosystem to let me exist. I want to own the ecosystem. I want to be the person who pulls the levers and like is the master of my own fate, right? I want to be the person who makes sure that like, hey, when I want to dial this up, we just dial it up. And if I don't, then we dial it down. But I'm not going to sit around and wait for things to happen anymore in pure ignorance. And you had to go through multiple iterations of that to figure out, be like, oh, I didn't do any of this. Yes, I took the risk to open an affiliate. Yes, CrossFit did a lot of things to aid that at that time when I came in. But at some point you get to a point where like, you're not doing anything. You're just not dying, essentially.
Yeah. And
I have a question.
Oh, sure.
Can I ask a question? Okay, so based on that, you guys are talking about then the box then has to recognize, or the box owner has to recognize that where they're at, they're okay, they're kind of complacent, but then a decision has to be made that they want to then not be where they're at anymore. So, right, rather than just staying where they're at. So Fern, you were just saying something had to happen. You had to make a decision to not just be in that place anymore. So what prompted you to make that decision, and how might someone who is in that similar situation be prompted to do that?
Well, I've told this story before. Mine was like a quasi tragedy, where I had like a weird moment of extreme self-reflection. And I think you could take my experience and combine that with two different things. But essentially, either something bad has to happen and you have to just be kind of sitting in this woe is me state and realize like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to go ask help. Or you're just somebody who is kind of what I would consider who is profoundly have a profound fear of mediocrity. Right. It should be like mediocrity keeps me up at night. Right. Like, I'm not saying I'm not mediocre at things, but like the things that I want to be good at, if I'm not moving in the direction towards being great or being the best, then it keeps me up at night. So you fall in one of those two buckets. Either that's just your personality and you've pursued that. And typically, if we looked back at your life, like you've pursued numerous things in this endeavor, right? Like you've chased something at all costs, at least once or twice in your lifespan. Everybody else, like, essentially got to get punched in the mouth. And then you make a decision. I'm either going to lay here on the floor and and blame it on everybody else. It's the market, it's the other gym, the landlord hates me, you know, my wife left me, like whatever. Or you can get up and you be like, hey, shit happens. I'm going to move on and I'm going to fix it.
Is that it, Katie?
That was good. Yeah.
Well,
It looked like you were going to say something. So
I was waiting. I don't know if you had a follow up, but I think
No.
the reason the good to great boxes struggle the most is because failure forces you to make a change and slaps you in the face, like Fern just said. And if you're just okay, if you're good, you don't realize, okay, I am actually kind of failing, right? I'm not. It's mediocrity, like Fern said, and I think too many people accept mediocrity, you know, and I've learned in my life that there's nothing I want to be mediocre at, and that's why I'm always searching out for mentors. I'm always trying to learn, and sometimes that learning is these calls. Sometimes that learning is I'm going to read a book. Sometimes it's like I'm going to watch a course online. But yeah, it's almost like the novice, the curse of the novice coach, like we've discussed too. It's like, hey, you're decent, cool. You're getting people to move a little better, and if you're complacent there, you're never going to move beyond this. And it's reminding me of, you know, the 4 stages of competency, like we talk about, and you're kind of describing, Fern, originally you kind of had this conscious or unconscious competence, right? You weren't sure, you were successful, you were competent, but not sure why.
I thought I was successful. Again, I was living in a state of ignorance because the ecosystem just allows you to be there.
Well, that's true too. I think we're kind of saying 2 different things. There's I'm actually successful at this thing, and then there's I thought I was successful, and then as soon as CrossFit or as soon as whatever you're doing makes a slight tweak, like me, I'll give you a really good personal example, nothing to do with CrossFit. I've been training jiu-jitsu a very long time. Very recently, in recent years, there's a whole new world of jiu-jitsu that's opened up called leg locks. And that's where 50% of the body was basically ignored for a very long period of time, where I thrived because being a decent wrestler translated very well to that style of jiu-jitsu. I can take you down and basically hold you down. Nowadays, the youngsters that are coming up attack part of my body that I'm not used to being attacked, and I need to get better at that. So my old school mentality of, cool, I can take you down and hold you down, doesn't do well, because as soon as I do that, they're just heel hooking me or ankle locking me. So, you know, you can be successful accidentally until whatever you're trying to be successful in evolves. And that's what CrossFit did, right? At first, I mean, Albany CrossFit was incredibly successful, not because of me, but because there was no other place to go. And when people wanted to get a great workout, you know, we had this dirty dungeon to work out in. But then as soon as CrossFit started hitting mainstream and more people started doing it, and there was more options, it wasn't quite as easy to attract those members.
A very recent example of this that a lot of people went through was the fallout from last summer when home office went through a transition, right? And I'm glad we went through it. I would have preferred to go through it a different way, but all in all, I think it was a very massive net positive. All the people that were struggling with their member base and massive cancellations and unaware, and they were like quick to drop the brand and all of these things, my contention is the vast majority of them fall in that middle bucket. If you were in control and you were paying attention and you had good, solid relationships with your clients and you were actively engaged with them all the time and growth and you had a strategic plan throughout the year, these are the people that were just fine, right? And in some instances, some of them thrived, right? Depending on what you pivoted to. Now, I do think there were some people that thrived and pivoted incorrectly that then led to some failures, right? But that's neither here nor there, right? Like there's some strategic error. I don't actually blame anybody for that. Like you read the room and ended up reading the room wrong, but and I'll just be like, listen, everybody had a 50-50 shot there. And be like, some people chose left when you should have chose right, just like whatever. So, but I think that's a perfect example. There was a ton of gyms that folded in that scenario because they fell in the middle bucket. They're just like, I'm just here, just existing. And I said this when we went through that. My brand, and I posted because we were the only people, was one of the only people that come out and said, I'm not ditching the brand, because my brand and our gym and our community was CrossFit rife. We owned that. And people were like, is what's happening with home office hurting you? Nope. Not one bit. Were people upset about it? Sure. But they didn't hold that against me, because I have a relationship. I was in control of that. We managed it. We nurtured it. We spent time with it. We were engaged in it all the time. Could we have done some things better? For sure. That will always be the case. There will always be problems. There will always be shit sandwiches to be eaten. Like, that's never going to go away. But are you in control is the question. And the vast majority of people are not. Their ecosystem has just allowed them to exist.
Yeah, and I think, like we've been saying, that's a problem. I don't understand why people will hire coaches or try to become better at everything they do, that yet they open a business and don't think to themselves, hey, I should probably get some help here.
I think it's ego.
You think, let's be honest, say there's 15,000 boxes. Amongst us and a handful of other coaches, 10,000 plus boxes aren't bringing on coaches.
There's obviously multiple things there, right? So we could make a broad statement and it would loosely apply, because you have to think across the globe. There's a lot of different variables going on there. So let's narrow this down. Let's say continental United States.
Okay.
Right. I think the concept that you're saying there, this now would apply, because once you go international, then you talk about exchange rates and a bunch of like other weird stuff that nobody has control of. So context matters. But in the States, yeah, I think a lot of it is ego. And people will say, yeah, I really need to do this, and I'm going to do it. And then they won't do it. Or they might admit it to us, but they won't. Or they won't admit it to us. They'll tell us, but then they won't admit it to themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we've discussed this before within affiliate university, and even in general, just people signing up. It's the boxes that are on the brink of failure that are willing to sign up right away. Like, hey, I'm putting this on a credit card. I'm going in debt for this. And then are also willing to put in a ton of effort and energy because they realize I need to do this. And those same boxes, in my opinion, typically wind up overtaking the good boxes that I'm referring to. And it's really the, what I would make, it's analogous to the technique and intensity lecture. If you're the person that joins CrossFit and you are all about intensity, you have this member at your box friend, I'm sure. Katie, you've seen it. The listeners, you've seen it. You join CrossFit. You show up to day one and you're like, man, that dude over in the corner, he's sweating, he's screaming, he won the workout. I want to be like that one day. And then you continue to show up, but instead of just going crazy like that guy, you listen to your coach. You put in the effort of like, okay, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to stretch after I'm done. I'm going to try to move really well. And slowly but surely, you start to catch up to that guy. And then one day, you beat that guy. And you never look back. And it's because you had a coach, you listened, where that guy's just comfortable being good, but you're now great. And I think that's really analogous to business. Like, yeah, if you want to be good, great, have fun. You're going to be there in a year. You're going to be there in 2 years. You're going to be there in 10 years. But these boxes that think to myself, okay, I need help and I need to get great. I want to get better. I'm going to listen and I'm going to put in the time, effort, and energy associated with that. Those are the boxes that are going to thrive in the future.
I agree with you. And I think what we're trying to shed light on here is for to get a little bit more clarity on where everybody's at. Number one, I think most people grossly underestimate what they can physically do in their brick and mortar, meaning like how much they could grow the business. I was on a phone call with a business owner maybe 2 weeks ago, called me. I had given them some advice prior to opening the first gym. And they're like, I did everything you did and we're here. And they're doing well. Like they're doing well, right? By virtually every metric, they're doing well. And they were telling me, they're like, I'm going to open a second one. And I said, tell me more. Tell me more. And they start telling me a bunch of stuff. And I said, and this was, and this is the box I'm talking about. Like, you're doing well. The ecosystem is aiding you. Like, you did some things very intentionally, but now you're making the mistake of thinking that you're doing better than you actually are. Right. And I know this is somebody who's done that, right? I'm like, don't do it. You're not where you think you are. Right. You're actually pretty far away from where you think you are. And that's okay. Right. It's not like a shot at you. It's not like, hey, look, dummy. Right. It's just like, I'm trying to tell you, as somebody who has a little bit clearer vision, who's been down this road and knows where all the pitfalls are with regard to that. You're not where you think you are. And I was like, I don't think you should do it. And I just went through a series of questions, boom, 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 none of which had answers. And I was like, you're not really giving me a good vibe on why you should pursue this other thing. And what this brings to light is, A, there's nothing wrong, right? It's not like things are crushing, but it's like there's nothing wrong, right? And then B, what happens in a lot of these scenarios when people do the second space is something or someone presented an opportunity that now created a false urgency that isn't really there. They're like, oh, they're going to give me this stuff and they're going to do the build out and they're going to do all this. And I'm like, okay, I don't know why that means you need to go take on 3 times the liability and have twice as much work when your thing over here is pretty good. It's pretty good. Like, by most measures, it's way better than most. However, it could be 3 times better if you just allocated all that time and energy and resources to this thing. Because what if you grew it to 3x, right? And it was just way better. But the false sense of urgency was like, hey, if you don't do this, this is not going to happen. I'm like, let it go. Let the shiny thing pass by, because now you're distracted off of your one thing because it's doing okay. And that is the problem. This is where sometimes people will make it out of that and sometimes people won't. Sometimes that will be their downfall. And it's like, just refocus on your thing. It could be better. Right? Just like fitness, all the analogies, they never stop, right? It's just the same. Be like, hey, you're pretty good at that. Cool. What could you be better at?
Yeah.
Can you do unbroke? Can you do 200 unbroken double unders? Maybe do that. Can you walk on your hands for 100 feet? Let's try that. Can you snatch your body weight? You can. Can you do it for touch and go? Right? Like, it's endless. It's right. Just keep refining it over time so that you do become like the Matt Frazier, and you are just like, no, I know exactly what I have to work on, and I'm going to do that so that you can never beat me, because I'm in control of everything that goes on here. Like, I know what my weaknesses are, I know what my strengths are, and the things that I'm bad at, I'm going to become really good at, and then I'm going to redial in the things that I'm already good at, right? So again, you can just treat yourself just like an athlete. We talked about this with regard to looking at your gym, with regard to how fit is your gym, with regard to the different aspects of your gym.
And that's exactly why you need a coach. Sometimes you just need a coach to be like, hey, focus over here. Look over here. Stop looking over there. Right? And it's
right.
I mean, we've had so many people tell us they're going to open a second or third affiliate, or their goal is, hey, I'm going to open my first affiliate, but my goal is to open, a bunch in the area. I'm like, hey, speed racer, slow down and let's just do a good job with one. And very often it leads to just a more satisfying experience. Yeah, if you do it, when I opened my second and then third affiliate, it was financially more successful. I was making more money, but I can promise you what I wasn't doing was having more fun. What I wasn't doing is having more free time. I was burning myself out. If you're an affiliate owner listening, if you feel like you're working hard right now, adding a second or a third box is not going to alleviate that.
No. The odds are heavily weighed on the scale of the side of you will be miserable. There are some people that can do it, right? And the people that I know that have done it in some other industry, right? Either in a previous professional life or something like that. But I don't think I know anybody that's done successfully that has no background there, that was just like gym and then boom, popped open another one, boom, popped open another one.
Or they have a really solid team behind them. For both of my second and third affiliates, and let's be clear, I was not 100% owner of those second and third affiliates. So yeah, if you have a partner that's taking on, whether it's 20, 40, 51% of the business, that's a slightly different scenario. But even then, I would say, let's put some really deep thought into whether this is a good idea.
Well, that has a whole nother set of questions coming into it, because if that is a 51-49 or a 50-50 or something like that, we all know that the business has to run at a larger scale in order to basically feed two mouths. Right. So, which is always my contention, was like, hey, if you can have a business that has 50-50 partners that's feeding two people, why wouldn't you just do that and make it feed one?
I think it's a lot of, like you said earlier, it's a lot of ego. It's like, I want to be the guy with two boxes. I want to be this. I want to be that. And, maybe it's getting older. Maybe it's having a baby. It's like, I want to be the guy that loves what they do, makes okay money, and has free time. Downtime,
right? Well, I think this is an interesting one. I blame this totally on social media. And I think a lot of people are doing things of that nature to avoid actually doing the work, right? Think about this. The perception of hard work is a drug, and people really like to take that drug, right? Oh, people think I'm working hard. And I'm always like, listen, if you got time to post on social media about how fucking hard you're working,
not working.
I don't think you're working very hard. I'm sorry. I just don't. Right. So I want you to think about that. It's just like, hey, the perception of doing all these other things and you're just doing busy work is not working hard. Working hard is like mastering one thing. I mean, just like mastering the shit out of it, which, every knob to turn in there, where every crack is, how to dial in every single thing in there. And why would you not master that thing first before you try to go do it a second time? Until you can explain the ins and outs of every single piece of your affiliate, in no way, shape, or form should you try to replicate it, because it's imperfect. And not that it's ever going to be perfect, but you definitely don't have the knowledge and the mastery to replicate it, because you don't even know why it works.
That's what I was going to say. Most people are not at conscious competence. And that's, within Affiliate University, one of the very first things we do is try to help people understand what's drawing people to their affiliate. Most people don't know that. And then they talk to some of their favorite members and they're like, I had no idea that they were coming here only because our class is at 5:15 and not 5:30, or because we have a shower that they never use. There's so many reasons, but they don't understand that. And it's like, well, how do you expect to replicate that when you don't even know why it's working in the first place?
This is something you should always ask yourself, which is, you had a big influx of people come in the gym. Why? And they're like, I don't know. Problem. There's a problem. Why don't you know? Okay. And until you get to the point where you're like, hey, this is kind of a secondary effect of something that we're doing, but I can very, very confidently attribute it to that. That's when you really start to dial things in, which is like, hey, we changed our Google tag words on our website. And I've been writing blogs for the past 8 months. And because I figured out what the search terms were that people were looking for. So I started weaving those in there. And then my Google search started to really, really tick up, stuff like that. This is something I tell people all the time. If your website's not performing, number one, CrossFit is still the number one fitness term searched on the interweb. Okay. When you go on the line, that's what people are searching. So if you're not getting leads, the searches are still happening. They're just not finding you. So what's the problem there? Right. Then outside of that, it's just like, you're not getting in referrals. Why not? Right. You are getting referrals. Why? Right. Like, you should be able to very definitively point to a thing. How did that happen? Well, this is what happened right here. I can attribute these 4 things to this growth right here. And I'm constantly trying to figure out a big influx. I'm like, okay, cool. I see that. I'm looking at some of these other things. Yep. I can attribute at least 70 to 85% of the growth to the things that we are actively participating in.
So let's flip this around as we wrap up. Let's turn it to you. Let's put you on the spot. Net 100 2021.
Mhm.
Why?
Oh, that's a whole separate podcast. Here's what I'd say. I do everything we talk about on this podcast. I'm not like pontificating. Like,
Okay.
literally doing all of those things. Revamped the onboarding long time ago. Redialed in the referral program. Reframed how we think about retention. Redialed in all the stuff we do on social media, and we have like 2 to 3 more iterations of that I'm still have yet to roll out to social media. So all of that, investing in the staff, making sure that the coaching staff is where they need to be. All of it is intentional. Rebuilding the website, dialing it in. What's the strategy long-term for that? Like all of those things, none of it is by accident. And when you look at all the things that I've dialed in there, you're just like, of course you grew by 100 people. Not like, wow, how'd you do that? Of course is the answer.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. You had a staff meeting last night, right?
We did.
Most likely, I believe you have staff meetings on Wednesdays typically, right?
We have 2 types of staff meetings. So we have the group staff, which is once a month. That's all the whole staff.
That was last night?
That was last night. Wednesdays, we do a team huddle with Cassidy, Lindsay, and I. That happens every Wednesday.
Gotcha. I thought maybe you were having your Wednesday meeting Monday because we'll be in town.
No, because you guys won't be in town till late Wednesday. So that meeting is still going to happen. And I'm bringing in somebody tomorrow to do like a guest spot with the team, right? Like I'm actively facilitating growth and development within the team. Like, and I'm not hitting the mark all the time, which is fine. But again, shoot for the stars, land on the moon. I'd be pretty happy on the moon with me and Jeff Bezos and Russell, who's the Virgin Airlines guy? Sorry.
Oh,
Richard Branson.
Richard Branson. Yeah. So yeah, we're all going. We're all going to the moon together. So
but I think one thing, people will say about Fern is, he's got a tough personality. He's very hard to deal with, hard to get along with. Yeah, of course he is. But
people don't say that.
Just me. But it's admirable that you also admit when you're not hitting the mark, right? Like you just said, I'm aiming for it. I'm not perfect, but most box owners don't have that ability to be introspective and be like, shit, I wish I would have done that a little better. Or, and that's really the 5th stage of competency, right? It's cool. Now that you have conscious competence, now that you know what's going well, do you have the ability to sit back and look at it, provide yourself feedback, and understand how you can even get better?
I don't hit most of the time.
Oh, I would say all.
Right. If we're going to be very candid, that's probably accurate. Typically, like the 3rd or 4th iteration of a thing is when it'll stick.
Do you have an example at the box that you tried were terrible, great?
Onboarding is one. This might be the 5th or 6th evolution of that. I'm like, okay, you keep refining and then you really start to understand what it's for. And now it could still be refined, but it's by far the best variation of it that we could possibly come up with. Then what else? Social media. That's a tough one because that's a constant evolution, but you try it, you're not good at it, you're inconsistent, stay with it. Cool. This podcast is an example. Right.
That's what I was thinking. Like just you and I together, like we've done a couple things until we've really nailed it. But even the podcast, yeah, we've grown this. We've brought on, young Katie. Full disclosure, contemplating getting rid of her because she's, becoming a little too, big for her britches, if you will. But we've evolved. We've really grown, and it takes time. It takes you and I having those private calls, like, hey, what can we be doing better? Let's, thinking about it, listening to it, etc. But too many people, just in general, are like, I'm good. Like I said, I'm good. Cool. If you're comfortable being good, that's a problem.
Yeah, it's just the old adage: if you're not growing, you're dying. And yeah, you're good. You're good now. But if you're just good with being good now, you're very quickly not going to be good in short order. And I think that's just something to just be aware of, which is even if you're crushing it, there always exists a scenario in which that just goes away. So what's the next thing? Like, how do I continue to buffer myself in this scenario? And that could literally mean exit strategy. It's not always continual growth. It just mean, I'm good, man. Like, I did it and I'm going to cash out, right? Like, that could be like literally good for some people. We're like, I'm cool. Like, I did it, right? I built something that was worth leaving to somebody else, and they can have this thing and try to evolve it further. So it doesn't always have to be like, growth forever, right? But all of these things are intertwined. Like, you can't get to that point where you cash out if you're like really cashed out. I mean, if you're not trying to grow something that would allow you to do that. And I think it's just acknowledging, like, where do I really, am I in control, right? Or do I at least have a moderate amount of control? Or am I just navigating the landscape, like not getting eaten at this point? Like, I'm just roaming around, not getting eaten, right? Or am I the king of the jungle is kind of the way you want to think about that. Nothing has come across your path and put a serious monkey wrench in what you got going on. And there will always be monkey wrenches. Like, that will never not be the case. It's just, what's your ability to deal with them is the question. And if you're in control, it's a lot better.
So you never miss an episode of the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel and on all major podcasting platforms at Best Hour of Their Day. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being a part of the best hour of our day. See you next time.